Where do the Philadelphia Eagles have the advantage against the Green Bay Packers on Friday when it comes to positional advantages? We'll get into that, plus LOE3 on this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase, joined as always by Gino Camilleri. We're brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use our code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. It's game day. The Philadelphia Eagles take on the Green Bay Packers tonight. 8:15 kickoff against the Packers in Brazil. Cannot believe we're finally here. The 2024 regular season is upon us, so we've got LOE3. We're going to make our bets through FanDuel, final predictions. But, Gino, we've been diving very deep into this matchup throughout the week, especially, the last 2 days, Wednesdays, and crossover Thursday with Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers. Go check out all those episodes. But I think just the culmination of all of that would be to go through the positions and discuss what advantages the Eagles have and what advantages the Packers have, because it's been very even. It feels like this is an even matchup with a lot of young talent on both sides. But I do think when you go position by position, you can say, okay, here's where the Eagles are better and here's where the Packers are better.
And yesterday, our Locked On NFL crew released the power rankings, and a lot of people think that the Green Bay Packers are ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And I say, whoa,
little prisoner of the moment.
Remember, this is a really good football team that the last thing that you saw wasn't great, but what did they do? They went out and got better in all of the areas where they were not great. To say that this is a football team that has a lot of weaknesses is a downright lie. This is a team that stacks up against the best in the NFL. We're talking about them in light of San Fran and Kansas City. Green Bay, yeah, they're on the up and up, but I still think the Eagles hold the advantage in a lot of areas when it comes to tonight.
And I think I said this the other day, but I still think at quarterback, the Eagles have the advantage. And I think it's slight because I do think Jordan Love, the second half of the season last year, that is who Jordan Love will be this year. I think he's going to earn that contract extension that he got. But Jalen Hurts, to me, has a bigger sample size of being a top-tier MVP candidate. His support system, I think, is more established right now. They're proven veterans, whereas the Packers have a lot of young potential players. Jalen, to me, I think will give the Eagles a bigger advantage on Friday, slightly, than Jordan Love. And I don't know if the consensus agrees with that. But again, I just think we're really getting into some recency bias if you put Jordan Love and the Packers over the Eagles right now, like those power rankings. And again, I said it the other day, it feels like people are saying Hurts needs to prove more this year than Love, and I just do not agree with that at all.
Groupthink's a powerful thing, man, and I'm glad I don't fall in line with that groupthink because I've watched enough of Jalen Hurts, and I've been on the opposite side of where I felt about Jalen Hurts, and he has proved me wrong in every single way imaginable. And I'm with you, Lou. We're going to go back for a second to week 11, right? Do you know who the front runner at MVP was according to FanDuel last year?
Yeah, it was
during
Jalen
week
Hurts.
11? It was Jalen Hurts. We're not even a calendar year removed from this guy being a potential MVP candidate after a year where he took the team to the Super Bowl where he was an MVP candidate, and they put Saquon Barkley around him, add Jahan Dotson, have a really good offensive line. If you weren't thinking he is going to be an MVP candidate and he has something to prove, where does your bias lie? I want to know where this came from. I want to know where the bias is.
Well, not to discount what happened at the end of the year. I don't think if you were skeptical
what does he have to show us?
all,
it's not 2020 anymore. It's not 2021. He showed us enough.
He does have to show, though, that last year at the end was a fluke. So I don't want to discount that part.
So
but I think
so does Nick Sirianni and the whole team, man.
Yeah, but it is still for Jalen exclusively. He also needs to prove it just like those other guys. So I don't want to discount any sort of criticism of Jalen or let's see it this year, because he does have to prove that part of the season wrong. But it goes to an extreme right now where they are just throwing out a much bigger sample size. The majority of the last 2.5, 3 years have been incredible for Jalen Hurts through the air and on the ground. And yet Jordan Love is almost being treated like the one that's established, that has 2 years of MVP tape and then a small stretch of bad, right? And he's getting the benefit of the doubt. So that's where I stand with that. I think Hurts has the advantage. I think at running back is interesting. You mentioned they brought in Saquon Barkley. The Packers also did bring in Josh Jacobs, who I think is one of the most underrated players, running backs in the game. But I do want to say, if Saquon Barkley is healthy behind this offensive line, I would give the slight advantage to the Eagles with Saquon over Jacobs, because I think Jacobs can catch the ball, but Barkley is on another level as a receiver.
It's close. This is one where...
It's very close. It's like 1A, 1B. You could say wash, but I'd take Barkley.
And if you go back years, Lou is the biggest Josh Jacobs guy.
Oh, yeah. Go back and listen to our 2019 podcast.
He wanted to draft this guy in the first round. John Gruden watched so much Locked On Eagles that year that
he had to get
reacted that the Eagles were going to take Josh Jacobs at that pick when they did not. But Saquon Barkley is a different beast. He really is. And behind this Eagles offensive line, that's the one thing. Green Bay's offensive line is getting better. I just trust the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line right now more. And Saquon's never played behind a unit like that, and he's never had the offensive firepower around the perimeter to take the eyes off of him. It was primarily on Saquon Barkley. But at the same time, Josh Jacobs did that for the Raiders, man. Like, he was a one-man show there for a couple of years, and he carried that team. So it's going to be a duel, man. Like, this is a heavyweight bout, and it could probably go the distance between these two. But I still favor Saquon Barkley just because I'm super excited to see what the hell he's going to do tomorrow.
It is funny, very similar situations. Both of those guys carried pretty much terrible offenses, and now they finally got to go to a much better situation where they're not asked to be the guy. And I think both of them are going to thrive and probably have good games on Friday, but I would give the slight advantage to Saquon. And then, Gino, I think we both agree the Eagles have the advantage with the offensive line and receiver. The Packers have a good line. They have a bunch of nice young weapons. But I would say the Eagles, again, they have more established, proven stars at receiver, at the offensive line. I think the only advantage I'd give Green Bay, and this is slight, Dallas Goedert's the best tight end of anybody on the field on Friday, but the Musgrave-Kraft 1-2 punch, I think, does give them like a slight advantage. So I would say on offense, it is the Eagles 4-5. At least that's how I tally it up.
Offensive line, I think the Eagles are a clear winner there. And it's going to be that way most of the season. No disrespect to anybody else. It's just the way that the Eagles have established their culture. It runs through the offensive line.
Yeah.
Wide receiver is an interesting discussion because I think the Packers have the deepest group in the NFL, like bar none.
So Dontavius Wicks is a 4 there, and he could be a top 2, top 3 receiver on a lot of teams.
Yeah, Bo Melton's like the 6th guy there, and it's like, dude, this guy is a legitimate NFL starter on most teams.
But there's no Smith or Brown on that team.
Is the sum of the parts bigger than the
I think
parts
adding Dotson
right?
makes it the Eagles. Yeah.
Yes, I'm with you. If it was
because Dotson's in that Jaden Reed, Wicks tier.
I'm gonna say it's a draw. Like the top heaviness with the amount of guys that Green Bay has, I think that scale kind of levels out. At tight end,
I was gonna say, what do you say about tight end?
Dude, I think that combination of Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave is like a year or two away from being in that like Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez duo type of conversation. They're two legitimate tight ends that if they were drafted to different teams would both be legitimate starters. And now you have the ability to run 12 with so many guys on the perimeter and Josh Jacobs and Dallas Goedert. I think with him, he has a lot more to prove than maybe anybody on this offense right now because of his injury history and just not being able to be on the field for 100% of the time and the limited amount of target share that they gave him last year. But that's not to say he can't do it. I just think those young guys are really, really, really good. And the Eagles don't have that 2 and 3 guy that they can throw up there. But Dallas should be in for another top 10 receiving yard. And overall, we said his target share in the red zone is going to continue to go up too. So it's close, man. It's close.
You have it 3-1 in favor of the Eagles and then 1 wash, which is at wide receiver. I had it 4-1 for the Eagles on offense. On defense, it's close. I think both teams have a lot of young talent. I actually did have the advantage for the Packers 3-2, Gino. I said they had the advantage at defensive tackle, linebacker, and corner, slightly, I think, for 2 of those 3. Then I gave the Eagles the advantage on the edge and safety, but they were all slight. Like there was no obvious, like, oh, okay, this is obviously the Packers or the Eagles. Like, they're very similar units.
Pitch me on the Packers cornerback unit outside of Jaire.
So I think Jaire Alexander is the best corner in this game. I think you look at Stokes as well, McDuffie in the slot. Again, it's close. And to me, like, the Eagles have Quinyon Mitchell. They have Isaiah Rodgers, Keely Ringo. But a lot of it's projection for both sides. So I think it comes down to, like, Slay versus Alexander. Who do you take? I do think Quinyon Mitchell is probably going to be the second best corner of anybody in that game on Friday. So I'm almost talking myself into the Eagles being at corner. No, I'm going to change it, actually. I think it was more, based on Alexander, but I actually want to switch that and go...
Like, wash him and Slay. Like, take them out of the equation.
Because never mind, because Quinyon is, I think, a lot better than Stokes, and I think Rodgers and Ringo are better than any other corner the Packers have. No, I actually... I
think Stokes matches up really well with Devontae. Like, you talk about that long speed and,
I do like Stokes, though.
Stop on a dime. I think that's a really good matchup. I just think beyond that, like, it's Ballantyne, like those two guys, like they're solid players, but to see the leap that Keely Ringo has made and what Isaiah Rodgers we know can be, and Quinyon Mitchell, and if you want to throw Cooper DeJean in the conversation, like that's where I talked
myself out of it. I think
I'm kind of on the Packers wide receiver thought line as I am with the Eagles cornerback group. Like, you look at the top end, wash those guys out, and then who has the depth? I'll take the depth there. I'll take the depth at safety. I think you're onto something with the interior. Kenny Clark is maybe underappreciated interior defensive lineman in the National Football League. Edge.
And then Wyatt, too. Like, they're Georgia boy. They have a Georgia guy themselves. I think Edge was close because Rashawn Gary, consistently 8 to 9 sack guy. But I think Bryce Huff is in that same tier with Rashawn Gary. And I think so is Josh Sweat and Preston Smith. Like, they all have a bunch of like B+ edge rushers. You know what I mean? Like, they're not
Lucas Van Ness as well.
Yeah, none of them have an alpha, but they have a bunch of like really strong, solid guys. And then, like you said, Van Ness, but he was up and down his first year, and I think you can throw Nolan Smith into that tier as well. But the Eagles also do have Brandon Graham and Jalix Hunt, and the Packers, they're a little bit, I would say, they're just slightly thinner at the edge. So that's why, again, all of these I could talk myself, just like I talked myself out of the Packers at corner. Like, I could talk myself into Green Bay at edge or at safety. At linebacker, I liked the Packers, Gino, because although Edgerrin Cooper right now, his status is up in the air, you add that Cooper and Quay Walker 1-2 punch, like that's a really good young
speed,
pair.
Physicality, like viciousness coming down.
I'm jealous of that. I liked Edgerrin Cooper a lot in this draft.
We loved him, and I think that's a really good guy to pair him with, and a Quay Walker, right? Who has, I mean, not as big and bruising as an Edgerrin Cooper is, who's probably built more like an edge style linebacker, but somebody who can teach him how to get sideline to sideline. And you can go back and forth on every one of these groups.
Because even safety, it's like they signed Xavier McKinney. I love Javon Bullard from Georgia, who was one of their day 2 selections. So it's like, is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, McKinney, is it a wash? Is McKinney slightly better? But then the Eagles have Blankenship and Maddox and potentially DeJean playing in a role here, where the Packers, it feels like they just have Bullard as an option. So again, it was more depth, and I don't think McKinney's that much better than Gardner-Johnson. I think he's slightly better, but like he's not on a whole nother tier.
I think you could, like, honestly wash out every position besides the interior, where I'm going to kind of challenge the Green Bay element. Like, Jalen Carter might be the best player on the field.
He's the best player at the position. Yeah.
Like, best player on the field. Like, I don't think like best player at the position. Like, he might be the best guy on the field tomorrow. Does he cancel out Kenny Clark? And then beyond that, like, I'll still take Milton Williams. Like, I'll still take Jordan Davis. It's close, man. Defense is like,
I had it 6-4 Eagles,
and it's going to come down to offense, though. Like, it really is. Like, I know defense is going to be hit or miss. I don't think much of it's going to be played. Like, we're trying to figure out who's going to score the most points, and like that's where it's going to come down.
Well, and that's why I think the Eagles are going to win this game, because the defense, I think both teams have very similar, like very even skill at all 3 levels. But the Eagles do have the advantage on offense. So if they get into like a shootout where both teams are giving up yards, I think the Eagles do come out slightly on top in that matchup. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. Coming up next, LOE3 returns for the 2024 season. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
As we roll along, this episode of LOE is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, let's go. I'm fired up. LOE3 returns for the 2024 season right here on Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Guys, make the second listen the new Locked On NFL podcast, which is now 2 shows every day. First, you've got the madman Tyler Rowland kicking things off in the morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in just 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Eagles-Packers tonight. Gino, it's time to put some money down through FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's get to our bets here to start things off. And if you take a look at our records throughout the years, I would say it's not bad, right? Overall, we're both positive when it comes to unit shares, plus 11.57 for me all time. Yours is plus 14.76. Like, I think we've done okay over the years. And heading into season 4, though, I want to get bolder. So I tried to get more aggressive with my bets today.
So for those of you who might be new to the show, if you haven't been following along over the last 4 years now, thank you to FanDuel. They've been the absolute best. LOE3 was a little creation I had, somebody who has been in the sportsbook world now for over a decade.
Yeah, Gino's been a degenerate for a while. I'm
for
new
a
to
long,
the game.
long time. But each and every week, come game week on Friday, we will deliver you 3 bets each, usually player props, which are going to most likely be players hitting overs in receiving yards, touchdowns, so on and so forth. But if you go to FanDuel on the app, the amount of props that you can bet, you can get lost in there for weeks trying to figure it out. But like you said,
it's hard
Lou,
not to spend money.
if you followed us the last 4 years, for every $100 that you bet,
I was going to say,
you would be up $2,500.
Yeah, we've done pretty good. I was going to say, we've done pretty good. All right, so for Eagles-Packers, let's start things off. We both have a Jalen Hurts bet, Gino. You have an anytime touchdown, which I love. Like, just get a win early on week 1. It's the most reliable bet the Eagles have had since 2020. And then speaking of Jalen Hurts being reliable on the ground, I took the over on 35.5 rushing yards, which is minus 113. Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown is minus 105. I like both. I think Jalen's healthy this year. I know in a Kellen Moore offense, he'll probably drop back, throw even more than he did last year. But at the same time, Kellen Moore is going to mold this offense to Hurts' strengths. And even if it's not like designed runs, there's going to be more scramble drills than there were last year. I just don't think that part of Jalen's game was tip top, right? And I think he'll get in the end zone with his legs, and I think he'll get over 35 rushing yards. I mean, he had over 100 last time he played Green Bay.
One of the most reliable things on earth, death taxes, and Jalen Hurts just scoring an anytime touchdown. Is that going to be via a tush push? I don't think so, Lou. I have a thought in my mind that
I wish you could bet that. That'd be a fun bet.
Yeah, can he score on the tush push or the field?
Yeah, is it like a non-tush push rushing touchdown?
One of the things that I think Kellen Moore is going to add to this offense, not just is that motion element, but off of the motion, how can we design this offense to be 3-dimensional? Yeah. We're going to have our quarterback being able to take it and run with it. We're going to be able to hand it off, or we're going to be able to run a triple option and pitch it out wide. But Jalen Hurts in the red zone, I think what you have to do is you have to freeze one of those guys on the edge to give yourself an advantage. Get back to that and allow Jalen Hurts to use his speed and athleticism on the edge. He's going to scamper in for a touchdown off of a nice little read option with the motion off of it, maybe a jet behind it. anytime touchdown. And I'm with you on the 35.5 rushing yards. One of the ones that I saw that if you're feeling frisky, folks, at plus 2,000, Jalen Hurts, Saquon combined for over 200 rushing yards. If there was a team the Eagles have had success in the run game against, it is the Green Bay Packers. So if you're feeling big in your britches this first week here, that might be one you want to go for.
All right, let's get to our second bets here. So I have an anytime touchdown for Jahan Dotson. You have the over for Devontae Smith at 59.5 receiving yards. So we're both trying to make some money through the Eagles' top 3 wide receivers. I love the Smith bet. Devontae normally, it's kind of been like back and forth, like who starts things off as the go-to guy. Last year, week 1, it felt like it was kind of split, but Devontae was involved a lot against New England. And then 2 years ago, it was A.J. Brown against Detroit. But, 59.5, like especially with how Kellen Moore is going to use Devontae inside and out, I like that bet a lot. And for me, again, I'm going bold. I wanted to do an anytime touchdown from someone that's not the big 3 or 5 of like Hurts, Saquon, Goedert, Smith, Brown. I almost did a Kenny G, Kenneth Gainwell bet, but I like a Dotson touchdown. They're going to be focusing on so many other guys. Like, give me the newbie with the score in the first game.
When you look at the top end, I think Jaire Alexander probably should shadow A.J. Brown. Like,
yeah, I'd imagine so.
The one matchup. Devontae Smith now has the ability to go against a player that isn't named Jaire Alexander, which will only be to his benefit. And if you're looking at his average yards per reception over the last couple of years and his average catches per game, we're talking about 6 catches for 10 yards a pop. He goes over that nearly every single game, man. Like his yards per reception should be close to 12.5, 13. He should get, 10 targets in this game, like any day of the week. And then the Jahan Dotson one, that's going to be like a backside post where they like overload one side and you got A.J. Brown, Goedert, and Devontae in a stack. Jahan Dotson's the solo, and you got a nice little Doug Peterson backside post that they drum up, and all he has to do is kind of just put his foot in the dirt. Once he gets the guy's hips turned, take off towards the post, and I think Jalen Hurts finds him on some sort of play action type of look. And plus 500, either him or Kenny G. I saw the Kenny G one. I'm like, they're going to give him the ball in the red zone, and we're going to absolutely hate it.
But I had to think of like, this isn't Brian Johnson anymore. I don't want to start off the year with those vibes of like manifesting Kenneth Gainwell.
No, put it into existence what we want right now.
I don't want to root for Kenny G to be the running back in the red zone. So that's why I didn't go with it. I went with Dotson there. Love the odds. Just want to get bold there. Plus 500. Love the Smith bet. All right, let's finish things off. So I have a parlay to end things with Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert. You have a Saquon bet as well. The over on 61.5 rushing yards. Love that. I have the parlay of Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley receiving yards at Goedert's over 37.5. Saquon's, it's only 15.5 at plus 226.
2 catches.
Like, Gino, that's one screen pass or one wheel route or a couple checkdowns for Barkley. And I used to love that bet for Miles Sanders all the time, and he never really hit it. But for Barkley, I think he's going to be much more involved in the passing game. And I do feel like the vibes are of this matchup. It's like, I don't know why. I think it's going to be a Hurts, Goedert, Barkley game. Like, I think they really want to get those guys involved in play action, the run game, in the red zone. I just think Goedert and Barkley are going to be a big part of this game plan.
I think the best way to win most of your games this season is draw the attention to Saquon Barkley, get everybody's eyes looking downfield, and then all of a sudden they have to worry about the receiver game.
Yeah,
Set up the run, do what you do best, especially against Green Bay. Like, you have the formula. Like, go back a couple of years ago. That was the formula. And yeah, they've gotten better, but you still should be able to do what you want because you have that offensive line, because you trust that unit. You're going to put that into existence, that we're going to win every game because of what we do up front. And that's been the culture, right? And Saquon Barkley to hit, 66.5 yards on the ground, Lou? We're talking about FanDuel put out how many touches is he going to have on the ground. And I think it's 15.5. That's not even 4.5 yards per touch on the ground. Yeah. He should average 5.5 a pop. And that's only like 15 carries. I mean, he might get 20 carries and go for 6-7 yards a pop. And in the pass game, Lou, dude, one screen pass makes a single guy miss when they're running like a deep shot. Yeah, he's going to pick up 27 yards in one play. And we were chasing that so much with
So much.
DeAndre Swift last year. We were just
And
like,
Sanders
pass
the year
him the ball.
before.
Just give him the ball one time and he's going to
I
pick
know.
up 15 yards.
FanDuel knew what they were doing. They got me a lot for that bet. But this year, I'm going back in, and I'm going to be a degenerate, and I think Saquon's going to really make
He's
it
the guy
pay
to
off
put
this time.
the money on for sure.
Yeah, he's the guy to
Go the
fix
well.
this curse that we've had the last few years with this over running back receiving yards bet for sure. So there you have it. Our LOE3 presented by FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Final predictions for tonight coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike the other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and watch the winnings roll in. So one Jalen Hurts yard actually means one win on PrizePick every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it is gone when September ends. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I think one bet I'm specifically going to ride with for PrizePicks, the Goblin pick of A.J. Brown over 49.5 receiving yards. It's a tough matchup if he is against Jaire Alexander, but last year, A.J. Brown surpassed 50 receiving yards in 13 of 17 games. So that's what I'm riding with. Download the PrizePicks app today, get in on the action, use the code LOCKEDONNFL, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Eagles Packers tonight. It's game day. Enjoy the game. I cannot wait to kick this season off. Gino, final predictions. We've dove a lot into this matchup the last 5 days through the podcast, on social media, like checking out the film, the stats, the matchups, the bets. Like we're ready to go let's just get this kickoff here. Final predictions. Let's start first with some lines from FanDuel. The Eagles right now are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is currently at 49.5. How you feeling about both of those? You taking the over, the under?
So right now, if the Eagles were to cover, you're basically saying that this game is going to end somewhere 27-24. I think both teams have more than 24 points in the bag. I think the defenses are going to be a little slow to respond out of the gate. I think the Eagles do win. I think it's going to be closer. That 2.5 is what is known as a rat line when you look at these bets. Is oh yeah, the Eagles should win this one, but all of a sudden it's a 1-point game. You're saying, oh no, they didn't cover.
Right.
But the over under is what I'm looking at. Outside of the LOE3, I think a lot of points are going to be scored. I think the Eagles win in a shootout, and I do not give exact point predictions because if I did, I would be in a casino in Vegas, bankrupting them. Not our friends over at FanDuel because we appreciate them, but somebody else. But I think a lot of points are going to be scored. I think this is a Big 12 matchup. We've been saying it all week long here, Lou. I'm going with my first gut instinct. Don't change off of what I was thinking all off season long. Points, points, points. And the Eagles, they invested in the offense. It's what Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie is the MO of this team. They're going to win with a lot of points on the board.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well. And I'm not going to give a specific stat prediction or score prediction, but let's say it's like a 30-27 game. I could totally see that. And that's over by 8 points already. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game as well. I'm hoping for that at least. That's the kind of football I like to watch. I think the Eagles will cover that 2.5 as well. So
I got another prediction for you here,
what's
Lou.
up?
I think most of those points will come in the second half. I think that this might be another Eagles week 1. Things start slow.
And then it opens up.
The points hit under in the first half. And then in the second half, that over, it's like, hey, maybe they score 10 to 17 points cumulatively in that first half. I'm thinking somewhere 40 points at least is going to be scored in the second half, without a doubt.
I think some just like other general predictions, like I said earlier, I really think this is a Goedert Barkley game. Like I think, Smith and Brown are going to be heavily involved every week and they're a primary focus. But to make sure, to make it easier on them, you got to get Goedert and Barkley involved. So I feel like that'll also get the offensive line to rhythm if you can get that run game going, take advantage of those linebackers, that matchup if Edgerrin Cooper is banged up. I think the I don't know if it's the Eagles legend himself, Eric Wilson, who was terrible for this football team, but I saw on the Packers depth chart, Eric Wilson is starting at linebacker for them if
I
Cooper
believe
does
that
not
is
play.
him.
I think
We
that's
brought
him.
him up the other day. That's
Yeah,
wild,
which
but
is
still.
interesting to me. So he would be starting next to Walker on Friday. And then I think the defense, they're going to give up yards, especially in this first game against a really good offense. But I do think they make a couple of like key plays in the second half, Gino, like a big sack off a blitz or a key turnover. I don't think they're going to like shut this team down, but I do think they'll be advantageous for sure. Like I think they're going to come up big in the second half.
You no longer have the Mariano Rivera of this defense in Hassan Riddick. But if you take a step back and go to that New England game last year, Lou, there's one player who made a game-changing play with the game on the line with, I believe, under a minute, if not just a little over a minute. I'm going to say Jalen Carter has an impact play somewhere in the second half, and you're saying, yep, that's why we drafted this guy, and he is the best player on the football field. And somebody has to step up now, Lou. You got different players on both sides of the ball. Offense a little more familiar, but defense, somebody has to be the alpha, right? Somebody has to go into that room and say, I'm going to take this game over. I think Jalen Carter has all the traits in that toolbox to go out there and do exactly that.
Enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back right after the matchup for our Locked On Eagles post-game show. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. Thanks for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.